Why, hello there, fellow human beings. My name is Jerrel Dulay. I am a normal human being just like you, and I run my own video game development studio. I make homebrew and commercial video games, and today I wanted to share a fun little project that I've had in my mind for a while now, and that is to interpret Pokemon and to redesign them as Silver Falls monsters. So I'm using a sculpting program here that is free, and I'm showing people how I use it here so that if anyone out there wants to try sculpting, they can use Sculptress. It's free, it's easy to obtain, and it's so fun to use here. So you start out with a sphere and you just sort of sculpt onto there. Now, the reason why I'm doing this project is because I'm so busy with work that I don't actually get to engage with my favorite game franchises anymore. I've been buying games and then I really only get to play them for about an hour or two. But, luckily I did set some time aside to play the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet games. So I did get to play those for about 8 hours, 10 hours. I I got somebody to play my save file for me, and I watched them play it while I worked. So that's how I was able to enjoy Scarlet and Violet. But it's a bummer not being able to engage with the franchises that you like. So I thought this would be a fun way for me to be able to do that. So I'm getting to spend time with some Pokemon related media, and I'm technically still working. And what's so important for any working artist or even just a hobbyist, it's so important that you continue to work on your skills and to keep improving. So for me, this is a way, it's an important exercise. It's taking a concept, an idea, and it is turning that into a usable game asset while trying to adhere to the design philosophy and the instructions and the task that is set out for you. So I have this playing in very fast motion. This is it's 800% of how fast I actually sculpted it here. So you see I started with a red ball of clay, and by looking at the Bulbasaur, my rules for this are I want to maintain the design philosophy and the objective of the character design. And so I want to make sure I'm not adding limbs and I'm not injecting my own sort of, my own wants into the end result here, but I am interpreting the Bulbasaur design as if it were intended to be a monster for Silver Falls. Silver Falls is my horror game series that started on the Nintendo 3DS. There are around 9 titles commercially across the 3DS, the Wii U, and the Switch. There are 3 Silver Falls games on the Switch right now. And you can see here this sort of signature look that I get for these Silver Falls monsters is this fleshy vascularity. The skin tends to be pretty tight and taut, and you can see the tendons underneath. So you can see I start out with shaping the limbs, and then I sort of consider where the bones would be underneath the flesh, and then I visualize the tendons that would be used to make those limbs operational and functional. Now you can see I've gone for a kissable lips approach. Some Silver Falls creatures tend to have pretty kissable lips, and I think it's important, depending on your design, to make it kind of kissable. Now, in this particular situation, I went for the kissable lips route because I thought it would help this character look more like a sad sack. I wanted him to look a bit pathetic and miserable, give him a little frowny mouth, and I thought it would add to that if I gave him just kissable lips here. So having that sort of empty eye socket look is quite signature for a Silver Falls monster or a Silver Falls cryptid. It's one of my shortcuts if I'm making a creature and I really just want to add. I want to make it feel like it's a Silver Falls cryptid, and there's like a sad element to the creatures here, and so the empty eye socket is something that I use as a visual shorthand for achieving that effect. But in my newer designs for my creatures, I've been leaning away from that. So you can see after I got my basic shapes out, I'm now adding what is the muscularity here, and you can see I'm also carving in to the sculpt to give it that muscularity and to give it also a sense of gauntness as well, and that's quite signature for a Silver Falls creature. So you want to make sure the muscles are well defined, and it looks like there's, you can see the bones and the shape beneath the skin, and that it should feel like the skin is pulling against the body quite taut. You can see I've created a new mesh for the flesh bulb on the back. I thought I would start with Bulbasaur for this series of videos. If people enjoy these videos, I hope I can keep making them as long as they're entertaining for people. But it's a good exercise for me as an artist as well. I have no relationship with the Pokemon Company professionally. I have been enjoying their games for decades now. So, as a Silver Falls idea for the in terms of being a creature, I consider that bulb on the back to be actually like a fleshy growth. I would personally wouldn't consider it a plant growth, and that's approaching this from a Silver Falls perspective. And you'll see when I start painting the sculpt how I try to incorporate the sense of being a plant. I want to at least try and give this some vascularity, a sense of musculature to this mass, but I also want it to feel bulbous and fatty, and definitely want to make it feel fleshy. I'm trying to keep my poly count lower than 1 million. When you're doing a sculpt, your poly count can skyrocket very quickly, so I had to make accommodations for that all throughout the sculpt here. You can see I've roughly got the shape here, and then I sort of rotate it. I want to match the outline, the profile of Bulbasaur. I want to make sure I'm pretty close to that. I want to maintain a faithful shape. So you can see early on I made sure to maintain roughly a pretty consistent and faithful proportions for the skull compared to the body. But I also wanted to balance that with considering that this is going to be a Silver Falls creature, and Silver Falls creatures tend to be quite lanky, as it adds to an awkwardness and a creepiness to them. So it's interesting having to balance all of those design requirements, and that's partly why I wanted to try this exercise, is I thought it would just be a fun challenge. So I start using my library for the base textures here, and you can see I've set down a base coat. I just want to make sure that every part of the sculpt has been covered with some degree of flesh. You can see I start lightly, but then I eventually start working faster here. Is I want to make these legs feel like the blood is sort of rushing from the top of the body to the bottom, and that is a pretty typical for the design philosophy for a Silver Falls monster. So I want to make it feel like the blood is rushing from the top to the bottom, and that also helps the limbs stand out as well. It helps give them a bit more presence. So you can see that it looks like it's definitely quite visually quite, it pops. The legs have that bright red. I want to paint in the eye sockets here, and that's going to help determine how much expression there is in terms of light and whatnot. I wanted to make sure I get the nose sockets just right. Like with a power socket, you plug a power plug into a power socket. So I guess that's the right terminology. So that's wanted to make some bright red kissy lips. So once you get your lips nice and kissable, plump and luscious, you kind of want to blend that a bit. So I used my bloody skin from my library there, my texture library, and blended that a bit. Now you can see I just wanted to see what the green would look like on the bulb before picking a nice fleshy mass here. So I want that bulb on the back. I really want to make sure that it is quite fleshy, so it's pink, it's brighter, and you can really see the cracks in there. I wanted to be careful and make sure that I get the details in there that really help express what this thing is supposed to be. And it also helps it feel quite a bit gross. There's a degree of uncomfortableness to looking at a Silver Falls monster. It's so fun and interesting. It's such a great challenge to balance making something that is horrifying and ugly and grotesque, but there has to be some degree of coolness to it. People have to look at it and also, somewhere in the back of their mind think, oh, this thing's cool as hell. But it needs to be repulsive in that these are monsters. These are Silver Falls cryptids. Here at this point, you can see I'm going back in and going over the broad brushes with a bit more details, so you can see more details in the skin. You can get the pock marks and the veins really come through there. So I'm going through later during the paint, and I'm using a lighter color on those ridges at the top of his head. I didn't envision them as ears, but rather bone ridges, and I've used a lighter color. I wanted to express a sense of less blood in those bone ridges. So I've gone for a lighter color and the blood pools in the lower part of the body. So that was my design philosophy there. And I wanted to make it feel like sort of the flesh bulb on the back does have a mossy component to it. That does help maintain the design philosophy of our good little buddy Bulbasaur. So I'm going through now and just detailing some parts that don't have enough detail yet because they only have the base coat. This one I wanted to make sure I wanted to get rid of all sense of symmetry in the painting and make sure I'm going over with a fine-tooth comb now, just making sure if there's any blank spots, just touching up the small bits there. And I hope you enjoyed watching that. I'm glad to be able to share this with you. If this video reaches 10,000 views, then I will rig this model and I will share it publicly. I will make this model itself available to my Patreon supporters. So if you check the Patreon page now, you can download this model and you can have a look at it, but it won't be rigged. But again, if you guys can help me get this video to reach 10,000 views, I will rig this model. I'll put bones in there, and you'll be able to download it, and it'll be publicly available, and you can put it in your next Pokemon fan game or something. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was interesting to you. This was a lot of fun for me. If there's any other Pokemon that you would like for me to cover, go ahead and put that in the comments section below. If you would like to check out my Silver Falls games, there are 3 on the Nintendo Switch eShop, and I just launched a brand new game yesterday on the Nintendo Switch eShop. It's called Clasher Ball. It has nothing to do with these cryptids or monsters. It's actually just a pretty chill arcade-style puzzle game. Thank you so much for supporting me, and so much thanks to my Patreon supporters. You guys really help me. Thanks to the recent contributions on Patreon, I've been able to spend a little bit more time creating free homebrew games. I like to make games for older consoles as well. I recently acquired some hardware for the Game Gear, and next we are working towards Sega Saturn, so your contributions will be going towards me acquiring that so I can make more homebrew games. So please look forward to that as well. And again, thanks so much for watching, and if you'd like to see more of this kind of content, please let me know in the comments section. Take care of yourselves, and hopefully I'll have something cool to share with you again very soon.